as fully independent, to lord it over the material world. The root cause of all troubles is therein false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord in all circumstances. Third paragraph. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhismadeva is due to being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. Arjuna had some bodily relation with Krishna because the Lord happened to be his maternal cousin. But Bhishma had no such bodily relation, therefore the cause of attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet, because the relation of the body is very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as the son of Maharaj Nanda, the son of Yashoda, the lover of Radharani. This affinity by bodily relation with the Lord is another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. Bhismadeva is conscious of this sweetness of transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijaya Sakhe, Partha Sakhe, etc., exactly like Nanda Nandana and Yasoda Nandana. The best way to establish our relation in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish the relation directly, semicolon. There must be a via medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. So there's several puzzles. They're not new ones, but several puzzles packed in this one verse and purport. Let's see if our younger devotees over there, I see 1, 2, 3. One of them's hiding. Oh, there he is. I'm looking to you three to see if you know the verse from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says he's equal to everyone but partial to his devotees. Samoham sarvabhuteshu. You know the verse? No? You know the verse. Do you know the verse? Samoham sarvabhuteshu na me dveshosti na priyaha. What's the rest of it? Something, something, something. Go ahead. Huh? She was right. I know she's right. I'm looking at you. I want you to say. Very good. So that's one of the puzzles or mysteries. And on the one hand, but on the other hand, Krishna is equal, and on the other hand, Krishna is partial. Hey, that's a contradiction, isn't it? He's equal, but he's partial. He's equal, but he's partial. Who has the answer? Is it a contradiction? Would you like to answer that one? You're shaking your head no. Behind you. But she shook his head no first.
It's reciprocal. He reciprocates with his devotees as much as they reciprocate with us. So
he reciprocates with everybody as they reciprocate with him.
That really is not he's partial.
So because the devotees are inclined towards him, he reciprocates with their being inclined to him. But he's inclined to them because they're inclined to him. But he's inclined to everyone So according to their regard. So what's that other verse? Ye tamam prapadyante tam stadaiva bhajamyaham. You know the verse, right? You're trying to remember it. Ye tamam prapadyante. Go ahead. Finish it.
Remember to my the second one. Ye tamam prapadyante tam taseva bhajamyaham. Mama Vartmana Vartante Manusya Partha Sarvasya.
Manusya Partha Sarvasya. Now your father remembers. Manusya, okay. Here's another way of understanding that verse, kind of an esoteric way of understanding the verse. The Paramatma feature is equal and the Bhagavan feature is partial. That is, if one sees him as the supreme and offers themselves to him in his service, as Bhismadeva does, then he's partial. I mean, he's specially inclined. And it's because he just got through saying in the previous verse, he's the super soul. He's present at everyone's heart. He's equally kind to everyone. And he is free from the false ego of differentiation, like friends, enemies. So he's not seeing Bhismadeva as my friend and the people over there, you're not really my friend. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety, is equivalent. So it's not on the material platform that he's inclined to, by his own decision, to be present before Grandfather Bhishma at the time of his parting, because that's Grandfather Bhishma's desire. It's not the same, but it's quite similar to Haridas Thakur desiring to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he leaves his body. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, came before him, and seeing the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he left his body. And similarly, Bhismadeva chose when to leave his body, seeing the form of Krishna. And there's other things that happen coming up. He absorbed his mind, withdrew his senses from activity and absorbed his mind in remembering Krishna while seeing Krishna, and left his body. But so back to the verse, he's appreciating the special kindness that Krishna is showing. So unto whom does Krishna show his special kindness? Unto those who have special feelings of love for him. That's one part. And then this conversation, little paragraph about bodily relation. It's not only because the previous verses were speaking of Bhismadeva, speaking of Krishna having beyond the bodily relation, having an intimate relation, which Bhismadeva knew. You think of him as your cousin, your friend, your messenger, your benedictor, and each of those items have their specific pastimes that he's referring to without detailing the pastime, because they all know. So, but he's not any of those things. He's the personality of Godhead. But he is all those things in his intimate relation. One of the things that's important when reading Prabhupada's books is to understand when he says this over here and that over there, and they seem to be in contradiction, they're not in contradiction. Although, if you just look at them literally, this is in contradiction with that. He's the personality, in Bhismadeva also, he's the personality of Godhead. He's not your cousin, he's not your this, he's not your that. but Krishna likes. And so he arranges things with those that are qualified, where he can have intimate relation with them in different ways. It's essential for understanding the science or the tattva of Krishna Bhakti. There's reciprocation. And the reciprocation, the concluding remark is, the reciprocation requires not just wanting to be in an intimate relation with Krishna. There are a few people I'm in communication with, and they're really eager for that relation. But somehow, no matter what references are made, they're somehow can't pick up on the fact that it's bestowed, and it's bestowed by one who knows. Finally, one of those somebody's got it. So now it's like, bestow. Become qualified, please. Yeah.
And just on this Krishna being equal to everyone, I just wondered if there's a valid viewpoint that.
He wants to give you the microphone.
Oh.
Without a microphone stand.
Okay. So is it a valid viewpoint on this Krishna's equal to everyone that every living being is related to him as in some service, but some choose not to act in that way? That's their independence, which Krishna permits. He doesn't interfere.
Absolutely.
Being equal, but some don't want it.
Absolutely. And then comes us, or the smaller portion of living entities that are in this material world that want it, and then somehow it doesn't just surface. There's a sadhana, and even when we do sadhana for a long time. It's not just you do sadhana for a long time, and then something comes out of that sadhana. Seeing Krishna. Where's the gap? Who has the answer? I'm looking to you for the answer because you're distracted. What's the answer?
Because the sadhana is most properly inattentive.
Because what?
Because the sadhana is inattentive.
Inattentive sadhana.
It's not
Okay, well, then, why is sadhana inattentive? If that's the cause, inattentive sadhana, why is sadhana inattentive? I'm asking you. Why is somebody's sadhana inattentive even though they want to get back to Krishna?
There are other distractions, other attachments.
Okay. Now you're really stuck. You got the microphone.
Because there are other attachments.
It's nice and wet out there, huh? I'm complaining. This is the sunshine state. Huh?
He said his hearing is going down.
Oh. Should I speak louder?
Should you speak louder?
Hare Krishna. This is a different evening. I'm going to tell a little story. once upon a time, I was visiting in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And there was a family that was attending Nitai Gaur Sundar's program at Murfreesboro, Tennessee, that lived in Nashville. And they were new people. And they were very enthusiastic to have a program at their home in Nashville. So I said, sure. So they got really wound up. 30 families are going to attend. I said, here's the rule. This boy likes whatever's in that basket. It's like his 10th one. Oh boy, what an evening. Okay, so I said, please don't be disappointed. But of the 30 people that said they would come, you'll be very fortunate if half of them come. Oh no, they committed. I said, just please listen. You'll be fortunate if half of them come, and they'll come in time for Prasadam. No. So sure enough, and it was like, can you give a new people's class? Because it's going to be all new people. It's all new people. So I started the class when there was only just, the regulars there. The new people hadn't come yet. And so I just had the young kids come sit up front. And I said, okay, I want you to answer this question. Just the same question, but I asked it in kid language. So we're going along the path of life. And it's not happening the way that we thought it would happen. And there's this misfortune, that misfortune. And at some point in time, lifetime after lifetime, we said, you know what, this isn't working out. I want to go back. So it's not, is it as simple as just doing a U-turn? It's not as simple as doing a U-turn. So what's the difficulty? And then they're all giggling and and then one little girl raised her hand right up front where they're all giggling. And she said, I forget exactly her words, but something like, we want to enjoy this place. That's why it's difficult. Wow. Little, very young. And then, so another boy raised his hand and said, because we have an attitude towards Krishna. Okay, you guys can give the class. It's difficult. We're conditioned by and we're distracted by lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of rebelliousness, and we can't. It's not just do a U-turn. We may try again and again and again to do a U-turn to go. We find ourselves back again, maybe with some progress, but back again in the tendencies, the vasanas of, you name it, varieties of distraction. We have our favorite ones. And that keeps us bound. So, and we have an attitude toward Krishna. The loving attraction for Krishna hasn't been awakened yet. So the bhakti process is meant to awaken. Now, supposing somebody, I'll just read this last sentence again in the purport for 22. The best way to establish our relation in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish the relation directly, semicolon. There must be a medium which is transparent and competent to lead us on the right path. So lead us, but also this message is here about bestowing. Where is that one? Anyway. Even when we require mercy, in short. We require to be led, and we require following. We require effort, and we require mercy. Same two tandem features. And the practice part is we hear, and when there's submission, then we follow. And we're not so good at following because we're not so submissive because these two reasons these little children said. We want to enjoy, and we don't have strong enough attraction for what our real home is. We don't want it strongly enough. And the bond of conditioning is quite strong, and so we're bound by our own conditioning. But that's the feature of Maya, the conditioning feature. And Krishna can turn the channel from the Maya to the Yogamaya, from Mahamaya to Yogamaya. And that's on Krishna's hand. And then what's in our hand, that's the effort. And then the other side is Krishna's ready to bestow mercy, but like Ramia said, he doesn't force. He's inviting, he's appealing, he's calling, he's sending representatives, etc., etc., etc. And we're a little lethargic, or, there's not, so the desire, to awaken the desire needs to be stronger. And it needs to be, as we discussed a little bit yesterday, it needs to be consistent. Consistent. Like moment to moment. Like this discussion yesterday, the mindfulness discussion. Moment to moment to moment to moment, and without any interval. I heard a Prabhupada give an example during one class about the spontaneous nature of bhakti. He used an interesting comparison. He didn't know the words in English, but he was referring to jump-starting a car. And with automatic transmission, most people don't even know what that is. But with standard transmission, you can start a car, even the starter isn't working. With automatic transmission, you can't do that. But with a standard transmission, how does it work? Three things. You get a few people in the back to push the car to get some momentum going. And you need somebody in the driver's seat that has the key. And they turn the key and pop the clutch and give gas. Pop the clutch and give gas and turn the key. You have to have, a dexterous driver. And then what Prabhupada said, then the car can move under its own power. And he made a sound, vroom, vroom. But it's the jump start is necessary when the starter isn't working. So it gets another way. With devotional service, in other words, he was saying, it's spontaneous. It's the natural condition of the soul. But the natural condition of the soul is now covered. It's like the starter doesn't work in the standard transmission car, but you can still start the car by jump start. So that sadhana is the jump start. That is meant to bring us to the stage of the car is moving under its own strength now, rather than people pushing it. It's the natural power or capacity of the car. The natural power or capacity of the soul is spontaneous loving service. I'll say it again. The natural capacity of the soul is spontaneous loving service. And then there's sadhana to help bring that condition forward into, practical life. So we do our sadhana. And when we do our sadhana, so say it negative, it's not a punch the clock kind of sadhana. I put in a certain number of years or mantras or something, and et cetera, sadhana. And then, the jump start happens. The spontaneous starts to happen. It requires something internal. It requires a desire to reach that spontaneous stage, a desire to connect with Krishna in our natural position. Complacency is it doesn't take us there. It just got news from here in Florida, where I won't say what place. There's a devotee somewhere, very old, and they were in a nursing home situation. Somehow their foot got infected, and it's very swollen and very dark colored. So they were taken to a hospital, and the doctors evaluated that they had to amputate. There was no way of curing the foot. And by this time, this older person had become a little delirious, and they didn't have control of their faculties. And so they said, no, I'd rather die. And they didn't have power of attorney. They had not given power of attorney to anybody. So in that situation, the doctors can't, and then the person that would be the right power of attorney person can't because of the circumstance. This is law in America. And so they didn't have, three other doctors. They said this is the only solution. Or if she doesn't have it done, she's gone in 2 or 3 days. That's how long it's going to take. It goes throughout the whole body. She refused. I'd rather die. So she went back to the nursing home, and 3 days later she died. Now, where does her soul go? I wasn't asked that question yet, but I'm anticipating. Someone from that place is going to ask, where did her soul go? No, that's up to Krishna, isn't it? It's up to Krishna. We can't say, well, she did lots of nice service. She was a good person and a good devotee, and so, and we can say nice things like that, but factually, it's up to Krishna. And if I were to, I'm not Krishna, but if I were to understand from Bhagavad Gita, likely she's going to take, as Krishna says in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, likely she'll take birth in a devotee family or in a situation where she can continue her devotional service. Not likely, although she's done devotional service. It wasn't on the topmost platform. And, there was an opportunity for her to give a power of attorney to someone. I don't know if those of you who are in the older set have not done so. They should do so. You should make sure that someone has a power of attorney and doesn't know how to make the right decisions about, life and death situations. Those things we do can be mechanical, and we may spend just many lifetimes, many lifetimes of chanting and practices, and not get the destination, not get the fruit. So attentiveness is certainly imperative, not optional. It's much easier to chant inattentively than to chant attentively. Or to chant attentively, it takes some effort. But it's even more than just making effort. Chanting attentively and with effort makes it very clear. We need mercy. That's this. So, I've been fascinated by this topic that's buzzing around. Sachi Kumar and Prema Turangani can vouch. I'm listening to this recording again and again of one nice devotee who's doing his PhD on this topic. Is bhakti is the nature of the soul to love God, or is the soul requiring mercy to awaken that love of God? Is love of God our nature, or is it entirely bestowed? And both are required. It's easy for me to go off because I'm fascinated by the topic, because we hear this wonderful verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. We probably all know the verse. Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhakti Lata Bija. Bhakti Lata, the creeper of devotion, has a bija or a seed. And by the mercy, prasade, by the mercy of Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhakti Lata Bij, one receives the bij or seed. So that's a bestowal. So is God inherent, or is love of God bestowed? And the answer is it's both. It's not either or. One can emphasize the bestowal part, one can emphasize the inherent part, and they're both required, just like effort is required and mercy is required. It's not one or the other, both. Because inherent, just like the very short expression that you made, every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. We're all part and parcel, and some are properly using, some are misusing their free will. And we're here, Bahir Mukha Jeev. We're here by Bahir, away or outside, turning our attention away from Krishna. That's our conditioned life. The living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent of the Lord, independent to lord it over the material world. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. Living entities aren't made. Living entities are eternal. But so language has its limits, but so made doesn't mean once upon a time it wasn't made and then it was made and it had this makeup. We're eternally, ontologically, our existence is, we're part and parcel of the Supreme, and that this Supreme is quite natural. In fact, our nature. In fact, love nature. And the falling away or falling down tendency is also within the soul because we're marginal. And the misleading concept is the turning away is an event in time. The turning away is not an event in time. The turning away is an event that's not within time. What's that? What's an event that's not within time? We don't know what events are that are not within time. We only know events that are within time. Is there such a thing as an event that's not within time? There's anadi events. Just like, the soul exists eternally. The soul is Krishna's part and parcel. The soul is so made. But it's the language sounds like it's an event in time, but it's not an event in time. And the turning in time. And returning to Krishna makes us feel awake to our real home, our real happiness. Our eternal loving relationship with Krishna feels right because it is right. It's our natural position, but it's forgotten. It's been so long forgotten that it's as if it's gone, but it's not gone. Is everything right? You want something? Yeah.
Just trying to how these factors interplay. One is like some scars, previous impressions, some scars or previous impressions, inclinations.
Yeah.
Then there's weeds that come during chanting.
Yeah.
And also the fact that bhakti is
Both of
completely,
my company.
bhakti is completely,
Not all.
and bhakti is completely independent. They may come or they choose not to.
Well, Krishna is supremely independent, and Bhakti-shakti is one of his subpotencies. And Bhakti-shakti is one of the subpotencies. So Krishna is eternal. Krishna is eternally independent, and Bhakti-shakti of his subpotencies is totally independent. So Bhakti may come, may not come. At the same time, Bhakti is in Bhakti-shakti of Krishna, or his Swarup Shakti, has a subset of his Bhakti Shakti, may come. So he's more than willing to have it come, but where's our attention? Our attention is on the chair right now. So depending on where our attention goes, and the point I was making is the intensity of the strength of our desire for Krishna, then bhakti comes, proportionate to. So your question specifically was, how do we deal with the fact that bhakti is independent? But the independent Supreme Lord reciprocates with his devotees. So then it's the choice is in our hand, because the Supreme Lord is reciprocal according to the love of his devotees, how we have regard for him. He reciprocates. He's not bound to, he's independent. But he does because he's loving. He's bound by love. We bind him by love and he binds us by love. And it's where that loving relation has because it's important, the via medium. The one who's carrying bhakti bestows it. Krishna's, you know this, Krishna, so I'm looking at everybody now. Krishna gives power of attorney to his devotee. You may give me wherever you like. And Krishna gives some guidelines. Don't give to people who are inimical. And the devotee says, well, I'm going to give it anyways. I'm going to go out and distribute books, or I'm going to go, go in Harinam, or going to encourage people. Anyway, so the devotee is very liberal, and it's through that via medium that Krishna's bhakti is transmitted. That's Krishna's arrangement. And then it can go further and further. So when we pray to Krishna to cleanse our hearts. I just got a nice message from one devotee who went to Pune, and during his visit to Pune, he went to a temple about an hour and a half from Pune, where the Pandavas, he sent me photographs of the deity of the Pandavas, while in exile for some time, they established a deity of Lord Nrsimhadev. Very, very old temple. Very, very old temple. Very, very old deity. And it's in a very secluded place. It's in a forested type of area, not, commercialized and everything. So they're praying to Lord Nrsimhadev for protection. If they can, why not? So then the intensity and strength and purity of that love determines the reciprocation. While bhakti is independent, it's reciprocal with those who are calling for it. And then it's bestowed through the medium. It doesn't change. The medium of the exalted devotees who are ready to give it. I just completed during Memorial Day weekend, you'll appreciate this, I think, Raghunath Das's Manashiksha. So one of the verses, it's actually 3 times in his 11 verses, but one of the verses specifically speaks of calling upon, if you want to get to that stage where your love for Krishna is fully blossomed, then call for the mercy of Sarup Damodar, because that was his Shiksha Guru in Puri, and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and their followers, because they're the exalted Vaishnavas that if you want Krishna's mercy, you go to them. You want Krishna's mercy, don't go to them. You want Krishna's independent Bhakti-shakti to come to you, go to them. And of course, there are members of disciplic succession following them, but he was writing for himself, but he was also writing for us. So we have our Srila Prabhupada, and we have our other great acharyas which we honor on their appearance days, etc. I'm thinking about our upcoming Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi and speaking all these things. So we call to them because we want their mercy, and they're ready. They're eager. And one of the ways they give their mercy is through their wonderful teachings, because embedded within their teachings is their mercy. And so if we're reading with that intent, desire to receive their mercy, we're going to get a whole lot more than if we just read for information and become a learned Vaishnava. But wanting their mercy. So it has everything to do with this question I asked you about, or all of us, chanting in a way that it's not distracted. So you're back to your question. Bhakti is independent, but Krishna is reciprocal, and he reciprocates through his representatives. He's very expert. If we want him, he may test us. Are you sure you want me? He'll put us through difficulties like Leeleshwari is going through this evening. Some of you know what's going on. There's a devotee and her daughter that went to India for Ayurvedic treatment. Their flight from Orlando to New York was 1 hour late, and their international flight left without them. And now, so they found a booking on another airlines, but the airlines that they flew on can't find their ticket. They can't find the luggage. And she's not well, and she's, she's going to be a wreck by the time she gets to India. So there's tribulations, not only with airlines. So Krishna may test, put us through difficulties. Everyone has their difficulties. I don't know anyone that doesn't. We all have our difficulties. But stay fixed on one thing, the mission of life. Anyway, the kindness goes to those who have their attachment to Krishna. Bhismadeva's got his body riddled with arrows. It's, what Leeleshwari is going through is nothing compared to Grandfather Bhishma. But of course, Grandfather Bhishma's consciousness was over the moon. And he was, ready. So our tribulations are, according to our, what Prabhupada writes in the story of Bali Maharaj is that Krishna puts us into difficulties, but he never puts us in a difficulty that we can't surpass, and gives us the strength and the intelligence how to deal. And that's, if we're maintaining our fixed position of being attached. So ordeal is there to help us get there. Sometimes it's a little difficult as we're getting there. See if there's something else, someone in the room, some thoughts. Yes. So we have the...
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When we say that bhakti is independent, does it mean that it is available for everyone, and then it depends on person to person how we want to take it?
Kind of. Bhakti is Bhakti Devi is under the direction of Srimati Radharani, and Radharani is under the direction of Krishna. So it's not exactly like a commodity. It's mercy. Not that you said that. I'm just modifying, the proper way of regarding bhakti. She's a personified expansion of Srimati Radharani, and she's ready. Yes, she's ready. And then what is, we don't like write the script for what the bhakti reception is going to look like and feel like. We have to be ready, within standards, in the sadhana stage, within standards of devotional practice, to demonstrate, to cleanse and to demonstrate our desire for the fullness of what Bhakti Devi has to bestow. Somehow our lives have to come to that stage. Good association and carefully trying our best to carefully perform sadhana bhakti is a good place to start. And then the adventure continues. But it's the awakening of that strong desire. And it's a relationship. That's the language in Prabhupada's purport is very, very nice. To establish relationship with Krishna. It's a relationship. It's not just up to us. Back to your question.
Maharaj, it feels like there is desire, but at the same time it feels like the anarthas in the heart that kind of creates a lot of distraction, and even though there is desire to
Well,
practice.
welcome to the club. The Sadhana Bhakti Club. You're a card-carrying member. So now what to do? With that same question that I asked you, but I already answered the question. So then comes, okay, we have to cultivate bhakti and strengthen the desire. And when options come to choose distraction or attraction, we lean in the direction of attraction. And wean away from the distraction. Especially when we're performing our primary devotional practices, because that will then help in all the other things that our day is made up of. Okay, is anyone else? Yeah.
Mic is not working. Hare Krishna Maharaj. I think you used consistent.
Yes, I did.
Is that different from Nishtha states? I mean, because when we say consistent, because at my stage it's not kind of consistent. The activities may be kind of okay, but not the consciousness. It's always right up and down. So one will be able to perform the bhakti in a consistent way, unless only when one reaches to the Nishtha state. Or
No. You can be consistent even before that. You can strive for consistency even before that. So it has everything to do with the effort. When I'm using the word consistent, it's with effort. When you recognize that you become once again distracted, and you just, just say in the course of chanting your rounds in the morning, consistent. So that's not the nishtha stage yet, but you're consistent in the effort to give your attention to what you're doing instead of so many other things. Ramia, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, because you brought up Raghunath Das Goswami is recommending to do certain things.
Yes, he is.
So one thing I want you to clarify, he said to have unprecedented, uncommon devotion for Guru. What does that mean?
Well, it's unprecedented. This came up in our seminar. It means not ordinary, extraordinary. Huh? Rather, there's the ordinary and there's the extraordinary. It's not okay. That check that box. It's a very strong devotion. Very strong devotion, extraordinary devotion. And it's not just one. It's just a list of things in the first verse, but that's one on the list. But that's what it means. Very steadfast in one's devotion to one's guru. And it can be plural. Yeah.
Also means that it's unprecedented and attachment. It means that we need to make effort.
Yes. 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 But that can be implied by saying extraordinary. There's ordinary and there's extraordinary. And excessive can mean like, well, that's too much. That's excessive. But it can also mean, intense or extreme or extraordinary. Complacency isn't going to work. Checking the box isn't going to work. Anything? You have something?
My question is, we are all, most of us here has have different activities that we do, and we try to kind of stop the activities. Mata is she owns the house, and she's using it for a program. But the house will also give her bills and problems. And someone is going to school, be educated, maybe one day donate money or something. But are those activities that sometimes they also feel like some kind of entanglement? Is that a good path, or is it better to leave many activities and go for sadhana?
The answer is, it depends. It depends on what is a sustainable position for you. So the language in Rupa Goswami's writing, anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjitaha. You know the verse? Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchate. Sound familiar? Rupa Goswami's definition of detachment. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but Prabhupada quotes it all the time. There's the false Phalgu Vairagya, where you give things up that are in relation to Hari Sambandha Vastuna. And then there's the proper renunciation. And then the proper renunciation has a few parts. One part is without attachment to anasaktasya. Asakti is one of the 9 stages of bhakti, correct? You're familiar with that. Asakti means attachment. The negative is anasakta. Without attachment, anasaktasya vishayan. Vishaya means sense enjoyment. It's in Bhagavad Gita. Vishaya vinivartante niraharsya dehinam. You can give things up when there's vishaya, there's attraction for that object. It's not sustainable. So, anasaktasya vishayan, without attachment to sense enjoyment, you accept things. And then what's the criterion? It's this very interesting term that says, it's translated as according to suitability. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham, according to suitability. That is to say, what may be suitable for her, and what may be suitable for you, and what may be suitable for the other Prabhus here in the room, without attachment to sense enjoyment, accept things that are suitable. Yatarhan upayunjitaha. Well, then they're to be engaged in service to Krishna. Now, for me, this is suitable. And for someone else, being a grahastha is suitable. And grahastha means you have a home. So how big should your home be? And how much stuff should you have in the home? And that's going to vary from person to person, because where your mind is peaceful. No, is it easier to be peaceful as a sannyasi? If you're a sannyasi, it's easier to be peaceful as a sannyasi. If you're not a sannyasi, such a person isn't going to be peaceful. So then comes your dovetail question. So then they accept something, because from that position, without attachment to sense enjoyment, they can be peaceful. It's the dovetail. It's the path to get to the stage where there's exclusive attachment to Krishna. Exclusive attachment to Krishna is a very high position. So what's the path to get there is your question. Is it better this or that? And then my answer is, it's according to suitability. And what's suitable for a householder is not suitable for a sannyasi. What's suitable for a sannyasi is not suitable for a householder. They'll be a lousy householder if they want to be like a sannyasi. Yeah. But so the progressive dovetail, but then here's the risk. Okay, I'm going to dovetail. But my mind is not, it's for Krishna. My mind is, I call it the 2-pocket program. So much for Krishna, so much for me, so much for Krishna, so much for me, Krishna, Krishna. That's my mantra. So it's 1-pocket program. And when I accept things, but we're not there yet because we still have material desire that's binding us. So that's the risk. As I accept things, I'm not thinking this house is meant for service to Krishna. I'm thinking that suits me. Not too big, not too small. You know, the Goldilocks and the 3 bears. You know that story? They know. It's an American story. Anybody else here that from India, you know the story? You know from school. I'll tell you the story. A short version. Goldilocks went in. Mama bear, too hot. Baby bear, too cold. Mama bear, just right. The three bears. The bowl of porridge. Too hot, too cold, just right. So, some like it hot, some like it cold. Some like it in the pot, 3 days old. You heard that one before? No, that's another. When you grow up in America, you learn all kinds of nice things. So find that which is suitable for you and recognize there's a mix. There's something about my own thing going on here. And but I want to get more to offering it to Krishna. So where do I draw the line? Try to minimize and accept without striving for, without the intention of Vishaya, is for Krishna. That's where you draw the line. And then you keep trying to move it into simplify, simplify, simplify. As life progresses, as your bhakti progresses, continue to simplify. Because if you don't continue to simplify, here's what will happen. You'll start to accumulate stuff. Well, just in case, right? And it blocks bhakti. So if you try to simplify, it may stay the same for some period of time, but you're always, this striving always. I may not be at the nishtha stage yet, but I'm striving in principle to keep things simple and simplify further. And what you have, you keep it clean, you maintain, and you simplify. Okay. I think that one more, and then we're going to end. Go ahead.
Maharaj, I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and he was saying that, in the world, everything just seems so real, right? And it is real, but it seems like all in all, like this is me, and this is my life, and this is, I do this and this and this. And, it's like, Krishna, how do I, what's the way to, navigate? And I told him, I think multiple times, that strong sadhana. But then it was, coming back to the same question. And I felt like, is there something, and he was particularly asking, like, during the time when I'm so entangled in, apart from the sadhana time, in the doership mentality, what's one way or what's some things that I can remember so that, you're not always in the, this is me and this is my things and there's no Krishna in the picture.
You like these one thing questions. What's the one thing? Remember the last time you asked me that? I got spun out.
But thank you for that answer, Maharaj. I think it really helped me.
Well, the next day I gave an answer. Because there's many things one can do. What's the one thing? The most important one thing to hang on to. So, I'm inclined to say asat sangatyage vaishnavachar. Or that would say it in the positive, it's sadhu sangha. Keep good association, sadhu sangha. You can have many, friends and do many things. Keep close to you, sadhus. Not just like hang out, but, engage with sadhus, what sadhus do. Bhajana kriya. which is the sadhana answer. So this is just a step before the sadhana answer. Bhajana Kriya is sadhu sangha. And when with sadhus, make sure, just like Veda was sharing with me in these reading groups, it kind of generated into just like a social hangout time. So, because there's social needs. So you just, get together with people that have an interest in bhajana kriya, and then you can have your, modest amount of hangout time. But, the social thing, because then you put the cart, the horse before the cart. You put hearing and chanting. That's what sadhus do. The sadhana emphasis is with sadhu sangha. Bhajana kriya comes after sadhu sangha. Did she share with you the nature of that discussion? Yeah. Okay, let's end there. And there's prasadam, whatever of the sweets that are left after that little boy stuck his hand in there 15 times.